Good evening, Zambia. This is Spotlight, and indeed tonight we are just over 150 days away from a general election that will either cement a new dawn or signal a return to the sun.
Tonight, the spotlight is on the man many in the opposition are calling the legal shield and the unifying hope. But as the Tonse Alliance faces internal fissures and the Patriotic Front battles for its survival, we have to ask the ultimate question. August 2026, is Makebi Zulu the chosen one?
Now, the question is, can a man of the law navigate the messy, often lawless streets of Zambian politics? Can he bridge the gap between Brian Munduwile's faction as well as the PF grassroots? Or is the chosen one simply a title given to a man tasked with an impossible mission? We need to find out tonight.
My name is Sharon Kalimbula. Thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, this is Spotlight.
My name is Alfred Chimba, and this is Spotlight. Tonight, the topic is Makebi the chosen one? And let's go straight into it to welcome our guest this evening. Honorable Makebi Zulu, welcome to Spotlight.
Thanks for having me, Alfred. Thanks for having me, Sharon.
Mr. President, it actually feels wrong now to call you honorable because you've crossed the bridge.
You just called me by the correct title.
Makebi Zulu.
The title.
The President. Mr. President.
Yeah, that's a correct title.
Good to have you. Thanks for
having me. I'm happy to be here. Great.
Mr. President, let's go straight into our interview this evening and look at the term chosen one, which is being used frequently in political corridors. And I feel this suggests you aren't just a candidate, but a savior for a party in crisis. Another question is, do you view yourself as a savior? Let's start from there.
That's very interesting. When I just walked in, I was wondering, I said, why is the title? Is Makebi the chosen one, or indeed the savior? Very interesting title, but I chose to look at it from a different way. The decision to get into politics is mostly motivated by service. Whether someone serving could be said to be a savior or a servant is much for debate. The noticing of a space where I felt I can contribute in Zambian politics does not in any way make me a savior. But it gives an opportunity to work with the Zambians for purposes of saving the Zambian economy, saving the Zambian democratic space, saving the Zambian, the respect for the rule of law, and saving the plight of the many people out there that are crying because they are in economic doldrums, they are in situations that they do not want to be in. And they are possibly looking for a leader, first amongst equals, who is going to take up that role and say, ladies and gentlemen, where do we go from here? I think we ought to deal with the economic situation in this manner. I think we ought to deal with the issues of governance in this manner. And I think I step up to the table to say, let us cleanse or let us press the reset button. So if you ask me, I would say I'm here to press the reset button. To press the reset button so that we go back to respect for the rule of law. To press the reset button so that we look at how do we want to be governed as a people. The last 4 or 5 years have revealed to us that it is possible that one can be given so much power and choose to abuse that power to the detriment of the citizenry. Examples abound. Freedom of speech has been eroded. We expected that the opposition would be free to speak. We expected that citizens would be free to speak. That hasn't been the case. That freedom of speech has been stifled. We have offenses such as hate speech, seditious practices that are being slapped on citizens for little or no reason at all. Any form of criticism has been seen as criticized or being seditious practices or hate speech. Speaking against tribalism has been construed to be tribalism itself. Those that are practicing tribalism have been given a pat on the back. Those that are condemning it in whatever manner they are condemning it have been said to be tribal in their approach. Persons that are expressing themselves, those in the diaspora, have been warned to say, we are closing in on you. Those that are local are languishing in prisons because they express themselves, or they show discontentment with the prevailing circumstances. And we think that ought not to be the case. The farmers out there are crying. We have to move to a place where we'll be saying farmers first. But we have relegated farmers to beggars. You can't get a farmer's product as early as August, September, October, and not pay them until the rain season is midway in. And only say we have so much in reserves and you're failing to pay to pay the farmers. When is the farmer going to be considered to be first? When are we going to tap into the dividends that we have in the farming sector? When are we going to tap into the dividends that we have in the mining sector? The small-scale miners were promised, they were called to Community House before the current president was in office, and he promised to restructure the mining sector, small mining, or artisanal mining as it were. And then what has happened now? The people in Chilabombwe are crying. Chingola, they are crying. Ndola, Kitwe, the whole copper belt. They're saying this is not what we signed up for. We signed up for better conditions as miners. We signed up for access to minerals as small-scale miners. Why are we being fumigated and exterminated by the army, as it were? Because those are the words that were used. Dehumanizing our own people, bringing them to insects, and then closing in. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be saying, how best we respond to what our people want. Those that are on the copper belt, what is their comparative advantage in relation to other provinces? Those that are in Eastern Province, those that are in Southern Province, how best can we harness the potential that is in this province and ensure that they benefit so much from them, from the resources that they have. We have had opportunity to go right around the country. You've seen me in Eastern Province. Sure. You've seen me in Western Province. You've seen me in Wapula Province. And the cry of the people is, we need access to our resources. We need access to our resources, and our resources must work for us. This time around, we've moved from a pro-poor government to a government that is only interested in enriching the rich and forgetting about the poor that are on the ground. It's just now that they're making frantic efforts, calling in all the youths from different places and speaking to them. And when you're speaking to them, you're talking about Sotsana. That is nothing to do with meeting the aspirations of people. When PF was campaigning in the last campaign, they were saying Sontopo wa Bomba. Now that is better because you are telling people, this is what we have done and this is what we intend to do for you. I was hoping that the UPND would be telling the Zambian people, this is what we have done. The politics of sloganeering and telling people Sotsana, what do you mean when you're talking about Sotsana? Why don't you say Sontopo wa Bomba? What have you done for the Zambian people? It is very clear that little or nothing at all has been done for the Zambian people. And the Zambian people are looking to see who is going to deliver on what they promised. There were promises that were made by the UPND. What have they delivered on? Pretty much nothing, because they have proven to be a government of liars. They do not tell the truth. They are alien to the truth, or at least the truth is alien to them, in that in one breath they can say we are going to do this, as was the case in relation to KCM. We will not bring back KCM. We will not do anything. The next thing, I'm pleased to announce that KCM is back and they will do this for you. They'll make conditions better. To this day, KCM has failed to honor
Mr.
up.
President,
Yes.
you have spoken very well. Clearly, that simply shows your vision for this country.
Certainly.
But then we take it back because you haven't been given the mandate to be fully called a president for the Patriotic Front, in which you obviously stand to use in the August 13th general elections. Are you, I'm going back to the chosen candidate for the party, are you their favorite? Or maybe because you have a clean slate, you don't have a lot of skeletons in your wardrobe. That's why you feel I could be the leader of the Patriotic Front? Or do people support you on the ground?
In my interactions with delegates of the Patriotic Front, party. What they have said to me is that what you present to us is a very clear position as to why we should give you the mandate. The mandate to bring back the pro-poor policies and that work for the Zambian people. The mandate to ensure that resources for the country work for the Zambians first. To ensure that there's breathing room for the civil servant who is suffering out there. The civil servant who's looking to make ends meet, but they're not given enough space so to do. You may recall that before the Patriotic Front left power, we had this program to say we are going to swap the date because most civil servants were highly indebted. Government was going to take over that date and pay it so that the civil servants have breathing room. When this government came, they scrapped that off. And now you see suicide rates are pretty much high. The indebtedness of civil servants, well, I can talk of those that, the men in uniform, they had microfinancing institutions that were there, that were giving them loans at very minimal interest, and that gave them some breathing space. All that was taken out. And we're saying, isn't the job of government to make life better for its citizens? Isn't the job of government to make sure that those that are working within the civil service are properly motivated? We think it is, but why isn't it being done? Why are we looking at getting contracts and giving them to our friends, selling mines to those that we're affiliated to, and allowing them to expropriate or at least get so much profits into private hands and leaving the citizenry? We have a good example of ZESCO.
Yeah.
Why are we using Canona Energy to buy power cheaply from ZESCO and eventually sell it back to ZESCO, or indeed sell it to the mines, when ZESCO can sell it to the mines directly at a better price? Why are we empowering those that are close to the people in power and leaving out the general citizenry? Why are we bloating the National Assembly, creating 70 constituencies, was saying we do not have money as a country, creating jobs for politicians, was we want to improve the conditions of service for the civil servants that are in office? Why are we concentrating on improving or indeed employing these politicians when the farmers are not being given sufficient inputs? Why don't we give farmers sufficient inputs? This money that we intend to give to the politicians, why do we have 70 constituencies?
Mr. President, you speak so well, but again, just to take you back, you scratched on the farming sector and mining sector, and also label this government as a total failure, according to how you are putting it. But are we safe to say that this government, the European administration, has completely failed, and we have nothing really to point at to say, at least on this score, they've scored, or we are better off as a country now, because they boast of the debt restructuring and a lot more, the CDF and all these other things? Are we in a state where we're supposed to say they've completely failed?
Just to add on, if you were in power, what could you have done differently as you respond to him?
To this date, after announcing, calling teachers to come to the airport to dance for the president and tell the president we are happy you have restructured the debt in 2022. To this date, the debt has not been restructured fully. It has been a song that has been sung by this government, trying to repeat it over and over and over again, to look at that as a success, when in fact not. They haven't succeeded in any way. What's in the news now? What's in the news is that the IMF has said that whatever debt that they want to contract now, they'll move it until after the elections. The IMF has downgraded our outlook, economic outlook, to say the growth has dropped from 6.4. They project that it will be at 5.5. If we are doing so well, why are we being downgraded? Is that doing well? So there is the propaganda by the government and the reality on the ground. And how you measure reality on the ground as regards how the government is doing is not these funny figures that they throw around in the air. It is in one word: affordability. Can an average Zambian say that life is much more affordable? Can an average Zambian say that? Those that are renting houses, the rentals are ever going up, but government is not doing anything as regards improving the conditions of service. You add 700 kwacha as an increment to one's salary when the cost of fuel has gone up, the cost of meal has gone up, the cost of cooking oil has gone up, the cost of rent has gone up, the cost of transport has gone up. Everything has gone up. And then you expect Zambians to believe that you're doing so well because you are drawing a graph, because you are saying we have pledges to this extent, pledges that don't even put food on the table, pledges that are never even realized at all. So a pledge is simply that, and is not an indication of economic growth. But this government is so naive to think that a pledge amounts to economic growth. The very fact that those pledges are not met means that the trust in your financial systems, or at least in your economy, has dwindled. People don't really trust so much to invest in it. You borrow locally and you're not able to pay. You tell the Zambian people, we have so much in our reserves. And then you wonder, okay, fine, if you are saying you've got $5 billion in the reserves, where is this money coming from? What have you done so that you're able to keep this money? Because my common sense is telling me that if you go to the hospital, you must be able to find medicines. Right now, hospitals don't have medicines, meaning why is government holding on to that money when they ought to be buying medicines that are in the hospital? The Cancer Diseases Hospital here in Lusaka is not a place where cancer is being treated. It has become a place where people go to die because there's nothing that the Cancer Diseases Hospital is doing for these people. All those that have been diagnosed with cancer, and government is kind enough, they take them to Tanzania. Why are we taking people to Tanzania when we built a facility that we can fully equip and treat our people? Why are we letting people die? Why is government killing people? Because if you don't take care of the infrastructure that has been built, infrastructure that you found, to ensure that you repair, make sure that surgical gloves are there, make sure that surgical implements instruments are there, make sure that the medicines are there. If you don't ensure that you do that, and you are praising yourself on one end and say, we have so much in our reserves, you are merely failing the Zambian people. You are trying to manage the economy based on how much dollars you are able to keep so that the rate is down, and you stop spending, you stop making money available in the economy, and people are saying, we need these essential services, spend the money. Government is not a profit-making organization. We need to respond to the social needs of the people. We need to respond to the health needs of the people, educational needs of the people. The youths out there want jobs. Where are we putting our attention so that we can grow jobs for the youths, the women? We can ensure that our hospitals are fully equipped. We can make sure that the free education that we're giving to children in our schools is actually quality education. You can't sit and lament and say the lowest and poorest performing students in the country is Western Province or indeed Wapula Province. You need to interrogate and say, why is it that we have people that are not delivering, or why is it that children are performing badly? You will discover that most teachers that are there are untrained teachers, because you are not sending teachers to those schools that are out there. And where there are teachers, the classes are overbloated and the teacher can't concentrate on all of them. All these issues are issues that you ought to be responding to.
Going by the question by my colleagues, how best were you going to handle these issues that you've mentioned, Mr. President?
And that is exactly what I'm saying, that all these are the issues that you ought to be responding to. You ought to have a look at a country, put the country under a microscope, say, what do the youths want? In this particular case, we are saying that we need to create employment. And creation of employment must be sector driven. Where do we have the most needs? We have a very good example. Why would you go and say, okay, you artisanal miners, get out of this area. You should not be in this area. We are looking for some people with money to come and invest in this. You want to reduce your citizens to being employees to foreign conglomerates. Why don't we say, let us structure you in a way that you are able to mine in a safe environment, you are able to mine in a sustainable way. We will support you, we'll give you the implements that you need to use, we will buy from you, we'll provide a market for you. But we want you to mine in a safe environment, and we are going to provide that service. The mine safety department is going to come in to say, okay, this is how you mine in a safe environment. We will allow you to mine, but we'll also provide the market for you. That is the approach that we should be taking. We had an opportunity, a very golden opportunity, where we got Mopani mine. Mopani mine was to be a Zambian mine. Now, what does this government do? They call their friends to come and get the mine, to come and buy the shares in the mine. And after they buy the shares, the money doesn't come to our coffers. They say, we're going to use this money to run the mine. You essentially have not benefited from it. And the companies that are buying are those whose directors or indeed whose members are close friends to the president. That you don't do, because that is taking away the credibility or indeed the trustworthiness that people ought to have in you, that you do what is in the best interest of the country.
Mr. President, this government boasts of having some level of achievement in various sectors of the economy. Let's talk about the mining sector. You said they are asking these artisanal miners to move away from these mining operations. They boast of having taught them to form cooperative as a way of empowering them. Secondly, in the education sector, they employed a number of teachers, at least in their turn. Also, some level of employment where ZNS is coming up with its own companies to employ other people. Is it this some level of development or improvements for them? Also, ZDA, I stand to be corrected. Give us statistics. Comparatively, we compared the previous administration in a period of a year of the people that pledged investments and actualized investments. They were quite high. Isn't this some level of progress?
You have asked quite a number of questions.
Just examples.
Yes, and I'd wish to address them. Perhaps let me start with the issue of ZNS, which is also another scandal that is there. ZNS cannot create a company. And yet we have this illegality going on where you have the commander of ZNS being a shareholder, or is it director, in a company that is supposed to belong to the people of Zambia. You don't do that. Already that's an illegality. And you can't praise a government whose purported achievement is based on an illegality. The only person who can hold shares for and on behalf of the Zambian people is the finance minister. That is the only person that can do that. So if you are going to have a government that is going to ignore its own laws and then do an illegality, and you look at that as an achievement, then that is not an achievement, that is an illegality. If you're going to have a government that is going to sell off the shares of a company, a purported sale of shares of the company, that does not work in the interest of the Zambians. That does not align with the constitutional provisions as regards the approval by the National Assembly, and choose to run away with that as a success. That is a failed government. And all this, which you're looking at to say successes in terms of employment of teachers, that I wouldn't call it a success. It is a success for those that built the schools where the teachers have been employed. Because at the time this government was coming in, they had found that there was infrastructure development in terms of hospitals, there was infrastructure development for schools, and many other amenities that are intended to serve society. Now, persons that have been employed in these particular areas cannot be said it was because there was employment that was created by the UPND. Employment was created by the PF who built that infrastructure because they knew it was going to take up teachers. Look at the issue of doctors.
They just finished what you started.
Yes.
Okay.
They didn't finish what we started. They implemented what we were in the process of implementing. At the time it should have been implemented. Yes. You look at doctors. What did the Minister of Health say? The erstwhile Minister of Health, Dr. Is it Mr. Elijah Mchima, who said, those who volunteered, it was your choice to volunteer. We're not going to employ you. How many do we have out there that are not employed? Is that how a government should be responding to its citizens? Shouldn't a government be working to say, how do we absorb this to deal with the health needs of our people? Our hospitals do not have the correct number of doctors.
I was coming to that as well,
exactly.
Mr. President, because in your preamble you did indicate that when you look at the health sector,
yes,
you are saying the cancer disease hospital has no medical supplies as well as hospitals.
Yes,
but
generally.
are there facts to back this claim, Mr. President?
All you need to
are we looking at statistics, and how much are we looking at right now?
All you need to do is go to UTH. Ask them if their CT scan is working. Ask them how many people they've attended to in this week when it comes to their CT scan. You'll find that it is not working. People are being referred to Mainasoko. And at Mainasoko, it's broken down half the time. How do you have a city like Lusaka where government does not have a CT scan, or at least a properly functional CT scan? How do you have people go to hospitals and all they come back with are prescriptions? All that is a reality that is obtaining on the ground. You don't even need to start looking at numbers. All you need is just take a walk into the hospital and you will see what exactly is going on there. We have said this time and again. You can't govern by way of propaganda. And this government, the efficiency is in spreading propaganda as to how well they think they are doing. But the reality on the ground is different. Right now, you'll see that for purposes of elections, we suddenly have no load shedding, but electricity has become expensive. So, where is this power coming from? Is it that they've stopped selling to their friends, Kanona Energy? Is it that they've listened to our advice to say, stop exporting? Because this time around, last year they were telling us, no, the water has not yet reached Kariba. The water is still on its way. We will stabilize sometime in April when the water gets there. What happened this time around? Where has all this water come from? So, if you are going to run government for purposes of elections, this is what you see. You will see that in the year of election, they'll purport to bring down the cost of milling meal. They'll purport to bring down the cost of fuel. They'll purport to give you electricity. But then you know that there's danger beyond the election. Because this is a government that has failed to manage it for a period of 4 years. And then 4 months down before the elections, they purport everything is stabilizing, when in fact not. Is it that the money that was being diverted corruptly is now working for us? Is it that those contracts that were being given corrupted to benefit their associates is now being channeled correctly?
When you say money that was being
corruptly.
Yes, which money are we looking at right
now? I'm going to make it very simple.
Please.
Kanona Energy. Why is Kanona Energy buying power cheaply from ZESCO and selling to the mines in Zambia at a higher cost? Why are we allowing that? You create a company, within a period of a year or two, they're being given big contracts. They have no infrastructure whatsoever. Just because you choose to split ZESCO into distribution, generation, and construction of lines and all those issues, you pick a private company to benefit from a Zambian company, a company owned by the people of Zambia for purposes of benefiting individuals. It's not making sense at all. If that is not corruption, then what do you call it? Why are we not putting the interest of Zambia first? If you're going to have ZNS get millimil from South Africa, GMO millimil, and say, no, we do not intend to sell this in Zambia. We are going to sell it to the Congo DR. Why is this ZNS engaging in businesses that they purport are for selling to the Congo, and wholesome millimil, which they wouldn't sell to the Zambians? What is the interest there? Has ZNS suddenly become a business entity that government is going to use, or whoever is in government is going to use, or the shareholders of that particular company are going to use?
I mean, even ZAF is now making millimil.
ZAF is making millimil.
Yeah,
well and good. They are making millimil, but are they making millimil under a company that belongs to the command? As far as we are concerned, that ego milling does not belong to the people of Zambia.
Okay.
And the commander has no mandate whatsoever under any law to hold shares for and on behalf of the people of Zambia.
Briefly, Mr.
That is
President,
corruption.
I know we're moving to the next segment. You've mentioned quite a lot of things that are really, really going wrong in this administration. But briefly, why are we failing? Why are they failing?
They are failing because there is an abuse of the law. We have a system from independence that has consolidated power into one person called the president. We need to move to a place where we move with time. It is time that we dealt with our constitution in a manner that we made amendments to our constitution in a way that even if we put anyone as president, the system itself will be able to regulate the president, his actions, his decisions. But now we depend on the goodwill of the person holding the office of presidency to govern the people in a correct
Isn't
way.
what you're saying now easier said than done, Mr. President?
As a legal mind.
Yes.
It is a point that we have to push for purposes of taking out that selfishness from politicians and serving what is in the best interest of Zambians. This is a time for patriots, people that love their country, people that know that we need systems in place that enable good governance to exist. There is bad governance right now because there is victimization of people in the judiciary. Look at what has happened to National Assembly. How that you have a speaker who misbehaves in the National Assembly, doesn't play the role of an umpire who's supposed to be independent, even answers questions for and on behalf of the executive. That's misbehavior of the highest order. You don't do that. You don't have that separation of powers that ought to exist amongst the arms of government. You have a very timid judiciary that can't be consistent with its rulings. It rules in favor of the government. People have been fired from the judiciary. The number of judges or indeed judicial officers that have been fired in the last 4 years exceeds the total number of judges that have been fired from the First Republic. From the time of Kaunda, Chiluba, Abi, all of them put together. This president has fired more judges than all of them.
And that's something you want to come and correct?
That has to be corrected because you need security of tenure for people that are in those offices so that they are able to exercise their minds correctly, pass judicial decisions that bind each and every Zambian correctly. So there has to be certainty. We can't be going to court to say, I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be, because even if you have a judgment that says they ruled in a particular way previously, the judges are capable of changing that decision right now, depending on who's in power.
Mr. President,
should it be dependent on that?
Let's move on with the interview, and now let's come to the issue which we can term as the prodigal son as well as the Tonse split. Brian Munduwile recently invited you to join the Tonse Alliance, and you responded by calling him a prodigal son who needs to come back home to the Patriot Front. And I think the question is, in this year alone, 2026, we've seen the Patriot Front arguably being more disorganized than the Tonse faction led by Munduwile. Why should he return to a party that is still fighting over its own chairmanship as well as legal identity?
For a start, I would like to put things in perspective.
Sure.
The perspective is that we have the Patriotic Front Party as a movement of people. We have its situation at the Registrar of Societies, where the documentation was changed in a manner that is less than legal. Less than legal because there was no convention, or at least something worth calling a convention, that ought to have resulted in the change of office bearers. The involvement of government in this process, the interference of government in this process, has led to PF being what it is now. Now, PF as a movement has chosen to say, let's pick a leader amongst ourselves. Someone we're going to rally behind for purposes of the next election, or at least the emancipation of Zambians. And as we are together, we say, we understand that PF may or it may not be given back to us. If it's given back to us, well and good. If it is not, we will have to use an alternative vehicle for purposes of the election. That is an agreed position. Now, when you sit and say, okay, we are a movement, how many people want to stand? We found ourselves to be at least 9.
Yeah.
Now the number has dropped to about 7. Now, amongst ourselves, my brother, Brian, was part of the team.
Yeah.
He's a very good colleague of mine. Now, we had Tonse created. This Tonse had the Patriotic Front Party as the anchor party.
Yeah.
We had President Edgar Chagwalungu as chairman of Tonse Alliance. And it was agreed in the terms of reference and memorandum of understanding that the president of the anchor party would be the chairman of Tonse, the anchor party being PF.
The Patriotic Front.
Tonse was intended to save that interest, to preserve the PF, because it was anticipated that this government would interfere with PF to an extent of not giving it back. And we needed to have a fallback plan, hence Tonse. Fast forward, President ECL dies. PF has to reorganize itself. PF has to choose a flag bearer. PF has to choose a leader. This leader will eventually be the chairperson of Tonse Alliance. We see a faction sit, and unfortunately, on the day the decision is being made to take away PF from the Tonse Alliance, my brother is sitting in the meeting that decides to take away PF. I belong to the Patriotic Front Party. At that same sitting, there's a decision to remove the acting president, Given Lubinda, as chairman of Tonse Alliance. He is removed. Tonse Alliance is reconstituted. There's no anchor party. They come up with this term called ECL movement and say these persons who are part of the ECL movement are part of Tonse. The party is removed. Justification, the party is with Chabenga.
Yeah.
But all this while, when ECL was alive, there was nothing to say the party was with Chabenga, because we believe that this movement, the party, is the people that constitute the membership of the Patriotic Front Party, whose documents have been tampered with. Now, there is I did say that we, as candidates in PF, our brother moves out,
Yeah.
goes to Tonse, contests an election in Tonse against President Dan Pule, in my view, contests against himself, wins, is crowned flag bearer of Tonse,
Then invites you.
then says, come and be running mate.
Are you too big for that?
I'm not too big for that. I'm too principled for that.
Oh.
Or is it ego of lawyers at play or what?
It is not ego, it's a matter of principle. It is the principle of it that we have to deal with. The principle of it in that you can't crown yourself king and say, come work with me. And it's for that reason I'm saying, listen, let's go back to the basics. We need to work together. Come back to this fold. The door is still open. I see today there was something in the papers that says, I'm still PF, I just moved up in rank in Tonse. Very well. Then if that is the case, we are together. There's no disunity. You are saying you are still part of PF. Why am I going on the other side? Let's come here. Let's agree. Let's talk. So far, we are doing very well in the in our talks and in trying to come up with who the leader is going to be. Internally, we are discussing. Internally, we are resolving this issue. And internally, we are saying we are going to go in this particular direction. But obviously, we can't do it loudly because we know that the eyes and ears of this government are on what's going on inside PF. And if we are going to make a decision to move, it has to be a collective decision. It has to be all of us. Chishimba Kambwidi, Greyford Monde, Given Lubinda, indeed Mundubile, if he feels is still part of PF, let's sit together and say, gentlemen, now that we have chosen who we think our flag bearer is going to be, what do we do? Then at that point, we move together. We give people direction. As things stand, the disunity that is there is because of this Mingalato that went on at Tonse. That seems to be a push and pull between the PF as it is and Tonse as they purport it is. Because the anticipation was that once that is done, there was going to be mass exodus of people moving in that direction. But the DNA of PF doesn't allow that. People who want to sit, see where the road is, then walk in that road. And that direction will be given sooner than later. And I'm very keen, and I'm looking forward to a time when we all sit at the table and say, let's save this country together.
Mr. President, just before Sharon comes in, yes, let's say this meeting takes place and you sit down, you choose a flag bearer, and it happens that you're not chosen as a flag bearer. Are you ready to be led?
Certainly, certainly. It is for that reason that I have not broken away. I had an endorsement from NCP, and they said I should be the flag bearer for...
What's the position on that as well?
Yeah, they said I should be the flag bearer for NCP. It is something that I could easily jump on and say I would take up that position. But then, how do you leave everyone behind? Why shouldn't it be a collective agreement that, listen, let us move in this direction? For as long as we are not uniting in this manner, we'll be failing the people of Zambia. So these individual movements should be what should be discouraged. Those are the things that should be discouraged. Because the moment, if I decided I'm going to take that up, we're going to have 3 factions by now. And that should be avoided at all costs. Of course, I thank NCP for believing in my leadership. It is something that is very tempting to take up. It is very tempting to take up. But should it result in further division of the opposition? Won't the Zambians think that we don't care about their suffering, or we're serving our individual interests? It is for that reason that I stayed behind, knowing that I ran the risk of not being the one elected. I bear that risk of not being the one to be elected. But I am ready to serve. If a colleague is in place, is in power, we are all good, because I know that even the ideas that I have, we're able to bring them to the table and serve the interest of Zambia.
One of your senior members, she's an MCC. She mentioned to say Tonse is a loose arrangement that brings political parties together. How sure are you that this was supposed to be a very strong special purpose vehicle, for lack of a better term, that would lead you to the elections? It's loose, it's not registered. How were you going to stand on it?
I'm sorry if it came out that way. Tonse is not a special purpose vehicle. Tonse is an amalgamation or coming together of different interest groups and political parties for purposes of facing the election in a united manner, in a way that we're going to say the interest is Zambia. If we're going to use SP, or indeed Zambia must prosper, or indeed FDD as a vehicle, being a member of Tonse, we would do that.
And
so the special
party will
purpose
have to
vehicle,
support?
yes, the special purpose vehicle is a party which is a member of the Tonse Alliance, not Tonse Alliance itself as a special purpose vehicle. It is an umbrella body bringing everyone together. It doesn't need to be registered. It is a meeting of minds, people of with common purpose coming together to say, this is what we intend to do.
You know, KBF, sorry to bring him in, but he mentioned at some point, and he warned that if the Patriotic Front was not removed from the Tonse Alliance, he would actually leave. And you were the source of confusion. Clearly, 7 members are vying for presidency, and it seems you're not agreeing on what is supposed to be agreed upon so that you move forward. Is it true that you are a party that is full of confusion? You know, you're an anchor of confusion in the country.
It's quite interesting. I chose to look at PF as a very democratic party.
Okay.
A democratic party that does not have one person as the high and mighty who ought to be worshipped by everyone who's there. But people are free to express themselves, to make themselves available for leadership. And making oneself available for leadership does not result into confusion. And if at all it does, then it is temporary. Temporary for purposes of choosing a flag bearer and amalgamating and coming together for purposes of emancipating Zambia. Now, this has happened before. 2015, there were a lot of candidates. But when President Edgar Chagwa Lungu was chosen as the flag bearer, everyone rallied behind him, and he eventually emerged as President of the Republic of Zambia. That's the democracy that we enjoy in the Patriotic Front Party. It's not like other parties we know of, where there's one who's high and mighty, the only intelligent person in the room. No, 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 no. We bring ideas together. We talk to each other. We say, what direction are we taking? And it is time that we give the Zambian people direction. And sooner than later, that will be done. I know a lot of people are losing patience. A lot of people are getting frustrated. A lot of people are saying time has gone. Yes, but we will respond to that call and give Zambians a leader to rally behind.
Let's quickly look
I'm
at...
not convinced. You're looking at me. I'm not convinced. No, 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 no.
Eventually, you will be. Possibly by the time we're done with this program, you just may be convinced.
Let's see about that.
I think the other question is about loyalty, and I know that your loyalty is to the Patriotic Front, but is your loyalty really to the Patriotic Front as a brand actually hating opposition unity? I'm asking this because if the goal is truly to remove President Hakainde Hichilema this August, why does it matter whose home and the alliance sits in?
See, if we dilute all this to say the goal is to remove President Hakainde Hichilema, we'll lose the plot.
What's your goal?
The goal in this particular case is Zambia. What is it that we're going to do for Zambia, which this government has failed to do? Why are we the alternative to this government? So the issue of loyalty does not address the issue that relates to the well-being of Zambians. We are looking at the governance system. It has broken down. The cost of living is at an all-time high. The mining sector, the agricultural sector, all these are on their knees, and we need to get back and deal with these issues. We need to deal with the cry of the youths. As a matter of fact, we have proposed to come up with a manifesto strictly for the youths, so that we're able to tell the youths, this is what is in it for you. We want a manifesto strictly for the women. This is what is in it for you. And we'll have a general manifesto that embodies everything. So, loyalty to the party does not supersede the loyalty to the country. And what we in the Patriotic Front Party are loyal to is to the country. Because we're saying, can we bring back the pro-poor policies? Can we have our resources work for the people of Zambia? Can we create employment for the youths? Can we have an environment that favors the women? Can we unite the country once more? This country is divided on regional lines, on political party lines, on tribal lines. We are more divided now than ever before in the history of this country. And we need to bridge that gap. And I want...
You're a lawyer, you work with evidence. I'll pin that on you. Is there evidence that shows that the country is more divided now than ever?
Isn't it propagated by you, the politicians?
So, I will tell you that now more than ever before, we are divided as a country. And this is not being propagated by politicians. By that I mean, it is not just being said by politicians that we're divided. We are actually divided. The complaints that are going on in most departments of government is how that people of certain regions are given priority in terms of promotions, or indeed holding those particular positions. If you like, we can do a rundown of most of the ministries that are there.
Please give us three. Sharon. Yeah.
I would want to avoid going in that direction, at least for now. And the reason is simply that we are trying to look at how best do we heal the country from these divisions that are rife. We are not trying to say, you who's holding that position, you should not be in that position. We are saying, why isn't there that proper regional balancing when it comes to these appointments? Sishua has written quite a lot on that. His articles are available to be seen, and they'll give you a rundown of what the appointments are. And I adopt that position. I can give you a link to those particular articles that are there. So we have to heal our country to a place where our discourse is beyond who comes from where, who is doing what. But we should be able to say that everything that we do mirrors the character of the country. Yes, that's what we ought to be doing.
Mr. President, let's quickly look at the policy alternatives. And yes, you speak so well, and of course, you've hinted beyond, President Hakainde Hichilema leaving the office, or maybe you removing President Hakainde Hichilema. But if you were in State House today, what is the first thing you would do differently regarding mining sector, or the high cost of melemeo, and just the health sector as well, agriculture and things that you've mentioned before?
Allow me to start with the agricultural sector. Before UPND came in, farmers used to get between 4 and 6 bags of fertilizers. Seed and legumes would be given to the farmers. That is, an individual farmer would get 4 to 6 bags of fertilizers. This time around, farmers are sharing that fertilizers. The bags of fertilizer, they are sharing. They have to break it, put it in small buckets and share amongst themselves. We have dropped. Seed, the bags that they used to get, now they are getting or sharing in cups. I keep giving this example over and over again. the women in Katete who filmed themselves sharing seed in cups were arrested. Why were they arrested? Because they made it public that they were actually sharing. I don't know what offense that is. I've tried to look through. But they were subjected to being in police custody for having done so. So we see that our farming sector is on its knees. Farmers, despite sharing that seed, they grow the seed, they reap, and they're not being paid. Or at least until last month, they had not been paid. You see that there are these inefficiencies in the agricultural sector. When we have the potential to feed our neighboring countries, we can be a breadbasket. Eastern Province alone has got not less than 1 million hectares of arable land that can be used for animal husbandry, that can be used for farming. In this season, the whole Eastern Province, if you're flying over it, looks like a big farm. How can we make farming better? We need to ensure that the inputs are on time. But as part of the Farmer Input Support Program, why don't we mechanize farming? Why don't we give them implements, or indeed make it part of the Farmer Input Support Program, where we are able to give them tractors, for example, or at least diesel-powered plowing machines. Or we just need to move from using a hoe to making it better, so that we increase our productivity. We have Malawi. Malawi will always depend on Zambia for food. We have the Congo DR. They'll always depend on Zambia for food. Our neighbors should be able to look to Zambia to feed them. The agriculture sector has potential to be the largest employer in this country. We have not maximized on the dividends that we have in the farming sector. Farmers were being told, you vote for a fellow farmer and you see that there's going to be improvement. You'll be receiving 8 to 10 bags of fertilizers, not what you're receiving. What has happened? It's the opposite. They've received less fertilizers than they ought to have been receiving. The mining sector. The mining sector has been commercialized to an extent that the largest beneficiaries are the foreign companies that are coming in. How do you have a mining company that comes and mines in your country and the profits are all being externalized? No money is being kept in the country. Or the taxes that they ought to pay, that's the mineral royalty taxes, are deductible. Deductible means that whatever taxes they pay, if they make a profit, they'll deduct that payment that they had made, as though it becomes as though they never paid, meaning that the miners are paying less tax. These people that are coming in from outside are paying less taxes. What we used to see in the time of Kaunda, where what was coming out from the mines would benefit the country directly. You saw roads being built on the copper belt from the mining sector. You saw sports being sponsored by the mines. You saw a lot of amenities that were made available, schools, by reason of the profits that the mines were making, or at least the performance of the mines. You don't see that anymore. All the monies are being externalized. We're being told we're going to increase production up to 3 million metric tons, or at least we produce so much in the last season. But how much of that crystallized and came to Zambians? So that man in Kapata, in Chipata, in Choma, Monze, in Wengwa, or indeed in Kaputa, is able to say, indeed we have mines because I was able to find medicines in the hospital. Indeed we have mines because the Kasama-Mpika road has been done and there will be no risk of accident. Indeed we have money for use coming from the mines that are resulting in building of universities, at least in each and every province. We are not having that effect because we have said the mines, or at least the policy for this government, is for the rich. Only foreign conglomerates are deriving the most benefit. The artisanal miners are being kicked out. The artisanal miners are suffering. And you go to Chirabombo, you go to Chingola, you don't have the right message for them. You want to distribute money to the people there. The people are not foolish. They know that if you give us money, these thousands of dollars that you've come to distribute, we'll only have them for this while. But we need some form of sustenance. Our communities are dependent on mining. They're dependent on those artisanal miners, the small-scale miners that go in the bush, that go in the mines. They get whatever they have, they sell, and they feed their families. The families, that money that they get, they go to the market, they go to Chiwempala market, and they buy products from there. They buy tomato from there, they buy mealie meal from the markets, and they go back home. If you take away that source of livelihood, what's going to happen? You see that there'll be a lot of thefts. You'll be saying crime rates have gone up in the on the copper belt, or indeed in the country. It's because what ought to be the source of employment, you've taken it away from the people. They've got no other option. They resort to stealing. You say there are a lot of junkies. There are a lot of junkies because you are taking away their source of livelihood. There was that issue of the Black Mountain. People from different places went and started scavenging on the Black Mountain, depriving the locals. And you saw the upsurge of the so-called junkies, and you claim that place is crime-prone.
Mr.
That shouldn't be
the
the
story
case.
of the mining sector is no different from the last 10 years. Let me not say last 10 years, but the 10 years of the Patriotic Front.
It is
we
different.
had mining giants being of foreign nationals. We didn't have the Zambians at the helm of these mining sectors. So really, why is it so bad now? And also, their defense as the UPND is that the Black Mountain, for example, the common name that we know them from, the Jarabos,
Yes.
they were illegal miners and they were trying to prevent deaths. So they stopped all those activities in order to save lives.
So, Sharon,
Is that enough defense?
first, let me tell you that what is happening now is different from what was happening then. I'll give you a proper case of Mopani. Mopani was handed over to government. And to operationalize it, when President Edgar Chagwalungu got Mopani mine after it was handed over, the Zambian government had 51%. What we needed to run that mine was $350 million to run it as government. That is what we needed. At the time that the UPND came in, all the suppliers under Mopani, money was made available to pay all the suppliers. Meaning that at that particular time, the mine was free from debt. All it needed was 350 million injection to be able to run it. When the UPND came, they went and got those people who sell phones in Dubai, purporting that they're investors, so-called Delta.
Yeah.
Those people never had Ngwe to invest. How they came into Zambia, a presidential jet was sent, go and pick these people up and come with them. We have Delta in Mopani, we have Jubilee Metals in Mopani. Who are involved in Jubilee Metals, who are involved in all this? It's the associates to President Hakainde Hichilema. Now, we are to sell the shares in Mopani.
You can't give your colleague business?
Just wait. But for a fact, I can answer that in the affirmative. I can't give my colleagues business.
All right,
I
proceed.
shouldn't give my colleagues business, because running government is not about giving your colleagues business. So what do they do? The shares, the 51% share, and to sell that shares, the value was about $650 million. You have this investor who has supposedly come, who is supposed to pay $650 million. So if you are selling this phone at $650 million, you ask for the money. I give you $650 million, then I get the phone. That makes sense, right?
Yep.
Okay. If I tell you that, okay, yes, I'm going to give you $650 million for this phone of yours, which is Mopani, then I get this Mopani and say, this $650 million, I'll be using it to buy talk time on this phone. Is that a sale? Is there a benefit that has accrued to you?
No.
There's no benefit that has accrued to you. So this so-called investor comes and says, yes, we are going to buy a $650 million, but we'll use this $650 million to start production in Mopani mine. That is how Zambia was shortchanged in that deal. I challenge government to say that is not what happened.
This is why you are saying...
I challenge government to say that is not what happened.
And this is why you are saying when you are voted in, you do everything
we have to renegotiate. We have to relook at all these contracts. We have to make the resources for Zambia work for Zambians. Look at what happened to KCM. President Edgar Chagwa Lungu saw that KCM was shortchanging Zambians.
Okay. And
it went into liquidation for purposes of seeing how best it can be made viable. This government agreed with President ECL to say, you have done correct, you have done right to remove KCM. When they came on several occasions, they said, no, we're not bringing back KCM, we're not bringing back, and eventually they gave back KCM to Vedanta. What deal did they strike that was in the best interest of the Zambians?
Mr. President,
can the Minister of Mines come today and say, because we gave back KCM, the lives of the miners are better, this is what has happened, this is the benefit that Zambia has gotten from that? I challenge the Minister of Mines to come on this platform and tell the people what benefit has happened to Zambia. Mr.
President, you are vying for the highest office in the land. And from the word on the ground, from the electorate, is that they're questioning to say, Makebi Zulu, you were Member of Parliament for Malambo, as well as Minister for Eastern Province for quite a long time. But what did you do for the people of Eastern Province? And why should they trust you now that you can put their interests first?
Okay.
You served for one term?
Yes, I did serve for one term.
And you flopped.
Imagine.
Why should the nation give you the mantle?
Imagine.
That's a bigger question.
That's a very big question. And you know, I've been coming across that question a couple of times.
Why should they trust you? You speak
and I would tell you.
Agriculture sector in Eastern Province.
I will tell you.
How was it then and now?
Exactly. I will tell you. The agriculture sector in Eastern Province was better than it has been under the UPND, under the PF, under the able leadership of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu.
It was better?
Who entrusted, by far much better. No farmers ever shared their products. No, the kind of delays that we're experiencing in the payment of farmers, that was never there.
So now answer the question, what is it that you did for the people?
And that's exactly what I'm saying. In terms of agriculture, we were topping, we were almost always number one, the whole country, in Eastern Province. In terms of hospitals, we have built quite a number of hospitals in the Eastern Province. We built district hospitals, we built health centers, we put towers in Eastern Province for communication. We worked on township roads, we worked on the greatest road. We worked on deep tanks. We put quite a lot of things that we did in the Eastern Province under the leadership of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, because that's the vision that he had for the province. We built schools in Eastern Province. Those are the things that we did. Now, in the last 3 years, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu lost the election in 2021. Then there was a call for President Edgar Chagwa Lungu to come back. Zambians wanted President Edgar Chagwa Lungu to come back because there was a point of comparison to say what we had experienced under President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is better than what we're experiencing now. That regret from the many Zambians is not only attributable to President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, it can also be attributable to some of us that lost, because the Zambians are able to compare now to say this was better than what we're experiencing right now. But then again, to have lost an election is not the end of the road. It's a moment of reflection as to how best you can now rebrand and offer the services. Now, I can't compare the issue of a constituency and the country.
National level.
And national level. Because it would be like comparing oranges and bananas.
Okay.
Yes, and these are different. The issue is, are you able to galvanize a team that is going to work in the best interest of the country?
Are you able
to recognize talent, or indeed abilities in different people that you can bring together and as a team work for the best interests of the country. And I'm saying, yes, I'm available to do that. We have a great team that can work to emancipate Zambia. It is never about an individual, as it has been made to be, or at least to seem. It is about a team that you're working with. I'm not an agriculturist, but there are those that are experienced in that area that formulate policy, the policy that I believe in that has to go there. I'm not a miner or indeed a geologist or indeed an expert in mining affairs, but there are those in the team that have that expertise which if we brought to the table would make a difference.
Mr. President, let's quickly look at the economic breathing room that most people could say. And Minister Msokotwane, rather, and the IMF are touting a 6.4% GDP growth projection for the year 2026. Inflation has finally hit single digits for the first time in years. I think the question is, why should Zambians change the captain of the ship just as water is finally coming down?
Well, are you able to revise the 6.4? Because IMF has said the projection is different. So that has been revised, meaning that we are not doing so well. We will not be doing so well. And if you're going to look at the inflation rate, what does it translate to for that marketeer at the market? Does it make the cost of fuel any cheaper? Does it make the cost of buying flour to make fritters any cheaper? Does it make the cost of transport any cheaper? It is for that reason that I say we should not be obsessed with figures that and graphs that do not respond to the issue of affordability. What you should be telling me is that what are you offering now that mealie meal is affordable? Because it isn't affordable. It has become much more expensive. What are you offering now that cooking oil is cheaper? We should have been looking at that. Those are the real issues that we have to bring at household level, and not these numbers that we're going to run for purposes of giving an impression that the economy is doing so well. Let us go to household level and see if they had all their meals today. Those are the questions that we ought to be asking, and that is what this government ought to be doing. And not telling us about inflation rate or indeed GDP growth that does not necessarily empower the Zambian people.
In our initial conversations, you talked about the debt restructuring and the people that were allegedly paraded to celebrate this momentous achievement, according to the UPND. What do you think should have been done, since you said it's not exactly translating into what has been projected? You clearly called it propaganda. Okay.
So in this particular case, at the time we were negotiating for debt restructuring, the conditions that were placed was that at least 50% of it was going to be written off. What this government did is abandon that process that was going to have at least 50% written off and go to this other process where they were just trying to work at extending the period for payment. That is what they were working on. But in the process, they have borrowed as much money as we borrowed in the 10 years, or at least close to the money that we borrowed in the 10 years, in this period of 4.5 years. What have they done with that money? There's nothing that you can account for. If we had said that they're using this money to pay towards the debt, and as such they have no space to work on what they have to work on in the economy, maybe that would have been understandable. But they have not been paying this debt. They've not been paying this debt. They had enough room to get this money and use it for what would benefit the Zambians. But what has UPND done in the last 4.5 years that you can point to? We can point at the hospitals, we can point at the schools, we can point at the roads, we can point at quite a number of things that we have done, quite a number of projects. We can point at the cashew project in Western Province. We can point at projects to do with animal husbandry, veterinary services in different places that we did. What have they done? No one is talking about what they've done. All they're saying is sort sana.
So this debt restructuring, really, if you were to describe, is it a failed project, or is it just?
If you are going to embark on a process that is going to give you 50% written off, and then give you space to pay the remainder, that is a better process than where you abandon where you are going to get 50%, and then you embark on a process where you have to pay everything over a longer period of time. It means you have failed to negotiate what was already possibly negotiated for, and you have gotten to a place where you are in a hurry to do what you ought not to do. For example, the scandal of the Ndola dual carriageway, Lusaka Ndola dual carriageway. When they come in, they revise everything. The first amount that came out, that the cost at which they were supposed to do the road, was about 450 million to work on the road. The next revision, it went up to 650. Then they revised it again, and it went to about 850. So this Chinese company that is supposed to work on the road tells them 450. Now we don't know how come it has come to 850. Who's getting this money that's on top? Over and above that, NAPSA is brought into the loop to say NAPSA is going to fund the project. But we're aware that the Chinese government says, okay, this loan, we will give it to you. We will give the contractor to construct this road. You have a consortium that you're consulting as regards this road, whom you pay $30 million. With this $30 million, not a paper has been put on the road. At least that was not to go into the project. And it didn't go into the project. You lose the $30 million. Then you get money from NAPSA, invest into this project. After investing this money from NAPSA into this project, you get the toll gates and tell this Chinese it's a concession. You recover the monies
within such a period of time.
Yes, you recover these monies from the toll gates. Okay. Why are you not giving the toll gates to NAPSA to recover the money, since you've paid the full price? What has happened to this money that is coming from the Chinese government to this Chinese contractor?
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. And that's yet another scandal that ought not to be the case. That's why I'm saying the corruption that is going on now is so rampant that this government may want to try to hold on to the reins of power.
In trying to
hide everything.
In trying to, you as opposition, in trying to hold the government accountable, what have you done? In as much as you are taking note of all this corruption, what have you done? Have you reported these corrupt activities?
Obviously, you have gathered a lot of illegalities.
I will give you a typical example. The Minister of Energy, the former Minister of Energy, what's his name?
Peter
Kapala.
Indulged, or at least involved himself in a procurement process. No minister can cancel or grant a contract under our law. No minister can do that. When he did that, with evidence available, Emmanuel Mwamba went to ACC and reported the matter to ACC. What has ACC done to this date? Where is Kapala today? Right now, there's a scandal in the Ministry of Sport, where 40% of money that was intended for the youths has gone missing, or at least has been misappropriated. What has happened? All the government has done is move the PS from the Minister of Youth and taken him to deal with special duties under State House. Ask the government to say, where's Pilato? Where's Pilato? Ask them.
The nation has not been told formally.
Why hasn't the nation been told formally?
So we are speculating.
Let's look at the issue of Kiona Energy. I'm not talking about Canona. I'm talking about Kiona Energy. With a contract to put gensets in all the hospitals around the country.
Markets.
In hospitals and markets.
Yeah.
What is the Auditor General saying about that? This government has to tell us. This government has to tell us what was the role of the minister, Elijah Mchima, in that process. They need to tell us. In fact, they need to tell us why was he removed from the Ministry of Health. At what price were these gensets being put up? What is the cost of those gensets? They have to tell us all this. Now, if you think this government would deal with corruption in a manner that they ought to, you're wrong. Because all these institutions that are supposed to be investigating all these issues, the person they report to is the president. DEC reports to the president. SEC, the president. The police, it's the president. How is he going to...
What is your stance on corruption?
Let institutions, investigative institutions, be autonomous.
Okay.
Let them be able to report to the National Assembly. Let them be able to investigate a person, whether they're in government or not. Now we have the Economic and Financial Crimes Court only dealing with people that were in government, and there's no one who is currently in government who's been dealt with or who's been taken to the Financial and Economic Crimes Court. No one has been taken there.
But just on that, really.
And yet there's all this corruption that is going on.
The former president, Edgar Lungu, once said, if give me evidence for the ministers that you are claiming are corrupt, you know, he seemingly defended his people. Yeah. How do you expect President Hakainde Hichilema to just give his people away to the wolves and say, investigate them if you want?
So,
which he has, I think, mentioned on some occasion.
You are wrong when it comes to ECL. Under ECL, you saw ministers being taken to court. You saw Shitalu Chilufya going to court. After he was dropped? Of course, he had to be dropped because there were investigations that were pending. But this time around, people are being dropped, and the matter is quiet.
Okay.
Look at that issue where the president was asked to say, there's this allegation of corruption against one of your ministers. And he says, I called him, and all he said was that it was a calendar. That's what the president said. But is it his job to investigate? Is it his job to call one minister and say, well, were you corrupt or not? His job is to ensure that the processes that he found, the institutions of governance, are functional, autonomous, and they're able to do their work fairly. How do you get a cadre and put that cadre in charge of an investigative wing?
Okay.
It's not making sense at all, unless you intend to hide corruption.
Under a minute, Mr. President, you've been in government before, and you know and you understand the flow of information. How much information should the government give to the public? You've talked about not being transparent with the issues of the gensets, among many other issues. But how much should they give to the public?
The government is not a cult. They rule or govern for and on behalf of the people. So all the information must be given to the people, save for that information that has to do with the security of the nation. So it's a shocker, Chalo. If you have failed to run the government, you must be able to resign, and so say, I failed to manage my ministers. My ministers have failed. Fire them. You don't put it under the carpet. You do what is right by the country. And that is why I'm saying it is time for patriots to take over the reins of power, and not those that will serve small interests or of a few people who are high and mighty.
Mr. President, we
can't head in that direction.
Let's look at the August election. If August 13th comes and you are not the chosen one at the ballot box, will you accept the results, or is the opposition already preparing a narrative that the election will be rigged?
Okay. The very fact that you asked that question, you do realize that there's a chance that there may be an attempt to rig. And I say so because you have seen how that the Electoral Process Act is being changed, where the security mark on the ballot, there's an attempt to remove it. And the reason is that, no, sometimes the officers are not so careful. How do you want to compensate for someone's negligence? So what we're saying is that Zambians, be vigilant. Be vigilant, because you have to protect this right. Already, they want to amend the law to say, once you vote, leave the polling station. What do they want to do when they remain behind? Why shouldn't I secure this right for me to have a leader of my choice? Why should someone subvert my decision? Why is this unholy attempt to change the law when there is no mischief that is there to be dealt with, save to make it easy to rig? How will we know that ballot papers that have just been thrown there are different from the ones that were already there? We ought to know, and that's why there has to be that special mark, and that is why that special mark was introduced. We should resist any attempts to amend, to make the law weaker instead of strengthening it much more. We can't be amending the law to make room or to accommodate negligence. That would be folly on our part.
Well, the nation is at the crossroads. Your pitch to the Zambian people.
Zambia needs a leader who is concerned about their well-being. Zambia needs a leader who will unify the country. And that is a starting point. The politics of vengeance has to be put aside. And we have to look at the politics that is going to respond to the needs of the Zambians. Resources that are going to work for the Zambian people. Our resources ought to benefit us, the Zambian people. An agricultural sector that is going to be so robust that it puts food on the table and money in people's pockets. A youth movement that is going to have hope that there's jobs for them. Jobs that are being created for them. There's opportunities that are being created for them. There's funds that are available, available to the youths, available to the women. We're going to have education that is going to respond to the needs of the country that have to do with development. We can't have everyone become a lawyer. We can't have everyone become a doctor. What skills are we giving our Zambian youths that they don't need to go look for a job? And that is where we come in. That is where we make ourselves available to say we want to respond to the needs of the Zambian people.
Okay.
Every worker has to be respected. Every worker has to be respected to the extent that their earnings must reflect the cost of living in the country.
Okay.
We can't leave them behind. We can't leave anyone behind. We need to give hope to the Zambian people, and we're saying hope is here. Let's do this together. Great.
Well, indeed, this is where we're supposed to say our barbers. Thank you so much to each and everybody who's been part of the conversation or spotlight this evening, and to you, President Makebi Zulu. Thank you so much for making an appearance this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Indeed.
Indeed, that's where we drop the mic. Good night. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.